Um, uh, Thank you. Eric, if you're on, would you say hello briefly and then we might go to you first. Are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, then what we're going to do, let me just briefly tell everyone, is we have a very important discussion framed to talk about a special partnership that the Philadelphia area has with a part of Israel that has suffered greatly. We're going to learn about that, hear from some of our Israeli friends who experienced the difficulties of the last couple of weeks, and we're going to then find time for questions. But before any of this happens, we have our rabbi from Adat Israel, who typically runs on Lunch and Learn and can only stay with us for a couple of minutes. So Eric, so good to see you. You have the floor, and go for it.
So I just want to say to everyone, Shalom Israel, hello from Israel. I know we have other people who are going to speak more in detail about the terrible day of October 7th and all that has happened since. But I have been here in Israel this is my third day. I'm headed back to Philadelphia tonight. And one of the things I want you to hear, yes, I have, with a bunch of rabbis through the Fuchsberg Center, this is the Fuchsberg Center right here, I have seen some of the aftermath of the atrocities that Hamas perpetrated. I have also seen the resilience and the resolve of the Jewish people here to respond, to enforce once again, never again, to help one another, to reach out to one another. We packed boxes of tons and tons of materials that have been donated to families displaced around the country. And it is pretty emotional to see this place alive in the wake of a horrific attack. It reminds us what we're about. I'm looking at a banner right now that says Am Yisrael Chai, and then underneath it, and this is written all over everywhere we've been, it says Biyachad Ninatseach, that we will triumph, we will be okay, we will be we will rebuild by coming together. And the reason I'm here, it happens that the Fuchsberg Center, who has run this mission, is right by Kikar Paris. You can see the fountain right there. You can also hear that there is tons of traffic in Jerusalem still. Maybe fewer tourists, but people are out and doing and knowing and bringing people in from the periphery, from the north and the south, who have been displaced. But this was a place that, in addition to at Beit HaNasi, the president's home, this is where many of the protests just a few months ago culminated. And the very people who organized the protest movement reached across to the people whom they were protesting within hours of when attacks came out of the south, and started the collection command central for people, and started to bring stuff to soldiers and to families and helping people. And there is a massive collective effort across the political spectrum, left to right, Haredi to secular, all working together. And it's really emotional and really incredible to see. And so I just wanted to be here to show you that this place is now a place of unity, and a place of resolve, and a place of purpose. And it makes me really proud to be part of the Jewish people. And I'll just say that we only have about an hour left before we have to start thinking about getting to the airport, but I just want to wish you all well. You have some good learning ahead, and I look forward to sharing with you my experiences in the days and weeks to come. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate you making the trip, and appreciate your making time for us. Thank you. Here's what we're going to do. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for staying on mute. Appreciate that. We'll have time for questions at the end. And if you want to get on the list for future Lunch and Learns, it's simple. just email me. You've seen my emails. If not, it's leonard.bernstein@hklaw.com. Leonard.bernstein@hklaw.com. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to hear from one of the very fine staffers at the Jewish Federation of Greater Philly, who's going to explain to us what Partnership Together is and what our partnership is with this very special region. Then we're going to hear from several Israeli friends who I will introduce later, and they're going to tell us about their experiences and what's going on in the region. So to educate us about partnership, and by the way, we usually have these sessions run by either Rabbi Eric, who you just met, or Rabbi Andy. Unfortunately, Rabbi Andy is at a funeral that he has to handle for a very tragic situation that happened in Bala Cynwyd a couple of days ago. So the Jewish Theological Seminary has given me a special ordination so that I can be the rabbi for another 55 minutes. So that we might get through this, we're going to start with my friend over at the Jewish Federation, Beth Raisin, who's the Associate Director of Israel and Global Strategies. Beth, tell us what Partnership Together is with respect to Philly. Go for it.
Thank you so much, Len, for having us today and letting us talk about partnership and all the important work that is going on and has been going on for a long time. So I'll just say first, Partnership Together is a Jewish agency program that pairs communities in the north and south of Israel with communities outside of Israel. And we've had a relationship with the city of Netivot, which is just south of Sderot. Many people may know where Sderot is, but you might not know where Netivot is. And we're going to show you in a second. Netivot is south of Sderot. It's actually twice the size with more than 50,000 residents. And is surrounded by Sdot Negev, which literally means the fields of the Negev. And I'm going to just pull up a map here for you so you can see what we're talking about. So here is Sdot Negev is the light yellow. The Netivot is in the center. Sderot, as I said, you may be more familiar with, is just to the north. We've been involved with the Sdot Negev and Netivot area for more than 25 years. We've invested more than $10 million, not just in security related items, but also in educational, cultural, really cutting edge programs that have often been replicated in other parts of the Negev and other parts of Israel. And one of the important things to know about Sdot Negev, and now I'll show you a more close-up look, it's made up of 16 communities. There's 2 kibbutzim and 14 moshavim, and they are this light yellow area, and here's Netivot in the center. And these are the different communities, mostly agricultural region with some light industry, some small businesses, some small factories. The 2 kibbutzim in the area are kibbutz. I do want to mention one other thing. Very important to know, relevant to things that have happened, is that there's a very well-known in developing countries, an agricultural school and an agricultural research and development center. And it's important to know that it's noted for those, the region is noted for that as well. The 2 kibbutzim in the area are kibbutz Saad, which is right here. As you'll see, right across is Kfar Aza, which was hit so badly. And we have a close coworker who was trapped in Kfar Aza with her daughter, but luckily escaped. And then the other kibbutz is Alumim right here. And as you can see, the fields of Alumim go right up to the Gaza border. And so we're going to hear more about Alumim. I'm going to put in the chat my information and some information about how Philly stands with Israel. And I'll put it in again later. If people want to know more about partnership, more about the region, I'm happy to tell you more, give you more resources. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Len, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Beth, and appreciate all you do. The partnership that Philly has with this region is special. Now let's meet our 2 guests from Israel who are going to inform us and inspire us. First, Dr. Jeremy Mazel is a member of Kibbutz Alumim. If you remember from the map, Alumim is right on the border. I was there with my wife Ellen in March, and we watched, we took a look at the border, and he's going to tell us about what happened there. Dr. Maisel has worked for the National Library of Israel, has had a long career in Jewish and Israel education as a practitioner and academic, and a variety of teaching and management roles. And Jeremy, we'll get to you in a minute, but I also want to introduce right now another guest speaker, and that's Tali Lidar. She is the Director of Israel and Global Strategies for the Federation, lives and works in Israel. She has deep knowledge about Israeli nonprofits. She's worked for the Federation for 17 years, 4 years as a community shlichah in Philly. It's been a pleasure and honor to see the work that is done by Tali, and we're happy to have her with us. So, Jeremy, if I could start with you, tell us where you were and about some of your experiences on October 7th.
Hi. I just want to preface what I'm about to say, that some of the descriptions I'm going to give may be upsetting. I'm not going to go into specific details, but you should know it's a very disturbing story. Thank you for allowing me to share my experiences with you. I was on Kibbutz Alumim on the 7th of October. It was Shabbat and a festival, and my family were with me. On the morning of the 7th, at 6:30 in the morning, we heard the launch of Iron Dome missiles, which intercept incoming missiles from Gaza. And we also got color red alarms. And as we're very well acquainted, we ran to the protected rooms in our house. It was a very prolonged barrage. And then we started getting messages over the phones on the community WhatsApp group, texts giving us instructions. It was Shabbat, but under the circumstances, although we're a religious kibbutz and we don't usually use phones on Shabbat, we opened the phones and we got messages, first of all, to stay in the protected rooms. After about half an hour, we got another message to lock the doors of our houses and stay in the protected rooms. There was a threat of terrorist infiltration. And about half an hour later, we got a message, terrorists are in the kibbutz. And we could hear light arms fire inside the kibbutz. In the protected room with me was my wife, my eldest daughter, my son and his wife. In another house on the kibbutz is my other son, who lives on the kibbutz with his wife and his 1.5-year-old child and 1.5-month-old baby. And in another room in her flat is my youngest daughter, who is in a protected room on her own. We had the phone open and we were in constant communication with her the whole time, but she went through a terrifying experience. On the kibbutz, we have a 12-man emergency squad. They're like security first responders. And as soon as they could see that there were terrorists in the kibbutz, they got their guns and they went out to confront them. There's a shelter in the center of the kibbutz, which has sees the cameras which are spread around the kibbutz, and they could see where the terrorists were coming into the kibbutz. And these 12 guys, members of the kibbutz, armed with rifles, went out to defend us. They saw that they came in through the back gate and went around to the front gate. They went and they started to shoot at them to prevent them coming inside the kibbutz. Some of the emergency squad were injured. They saw they were coming in through the back gate and they went to the back gate. There were dozens of terrorists who infiltrated the kibbutz. They got to the accommodation of foreign farm workers. There's a group of Nepali workers who study in the local college in Chemdat HaDarom. They study agriculture and they do practical field work, and they work alongside kibbutz members. And they're also Thai farm workers, foreign workers. The terrorists slaughtered 20 foreign farm workers. I know that one of the members of the emergency squad, who's a medic, ran to help them. He wasn't armed. He ran to help them. He saw the situation before they'd all been killed. He saw the situation and he ran back to get a car to try and get them out to get more medical help, and came back with a car. But then he saw the terrorists were coming and he managed to run away, escape, hide, and he was okay. There were a number of attacks. There were 8 separate attacks in total. At the end of the day, they found over 40 bodies of terrorists inside the kibbutz. One house, an elderly couple were in their protected room. A terrorist came and threw a rock through the glass back door, and the Benny went out to see what the noise was. Terrorist came in and shot him in the stomach twice from a range of 2 meters. The terrorist ran out of the house again and was killed. Benny came back into the protected room and he said to his wife, "Tippy, I've been shot. You need to call help." So he called the emergency squad. They came. The guy from the emergency squad walked in and he said, "Benny, what's happening?" So he said, "I'm okay. I've been shot in the stomach." They couldn't evacuate him on the periphery road because that was dangerous. So they put him on his mobility scooter with 2 soldiers in front, 2 soldiers behind, and he drove up to the center of the kibbutz. And then they put him in a car and they evacuated him. Magen David Adom and ambulances couldn't get to the kibbutz because it was a battleground. So under fire, the guys from the emergency squad evacuated him to Netivot, which is about 10 miles away. And then they came back again to fight. In the emergency squad, one guy got a bullet which went in through his cheek and the bullets lodged behind his ear. Another bullet went in through his shoulder, through his lungs and out of the back. And they found a 3rd bullet lodged in his back. He was also evacuated under fire to Netivot, and then an ambulance took him to Soroka Hospital. And when he arrived, the doctor said that 5 minutes later, and he wouldn't have been alive.
Soroka Hospital is in Beersheba.
That's right. So when he was injured, they took him to the nurse's house. The nurse laid him down under the kitchen table because we were still supposed to be in our protected rooms. The nurse is a midwife, and she's also a nurse on the kibbutz, and she phoned our doctor, who's also the head of the emergency room in Soroka Hospital. And with the phone and with his help, he gave her instructions how to deal with him, and she managed to keep him alive until they could get a car there and evacuate him. He's now okay, he's out of hospital, he's in rehabilitation, and he's going to be all right. Another couple of guys in the emergency squad, one had 3 bullets in his thigh, another had shrapnel. But those 12 guys managed to fend off the terrorists from getting to the houses on the kibbutz. It's a mixture of miracles, luck, that the terrorists turned right instead of left, that they arrived at that time of the day, that they arrived when the emergency squad could still get to the weapons store and collect their rifles. Another factor that they think helped save us was that I'm sure people have heard of this big music festival that was happening a few kilometers south of us. And anyone who escaped from there came up the road to the north, just past our kibbutz. And at the entrance to the kibbutz, the terrorists were just firing into the cars as they went by. So we think that when they got to the entrance to the kibbutz, they were distracted by what was going on the road and focused on what was going on the road. Also, the who appears to be the commander of the terrorists was injured there, and they loaded him onto the back of a motorbike and evacuated him with another few of the terrorists back to Gaza. He got an injury in his back, so that also might have messed up their plans when their commander wasn't around to take control.
Jeremy, it's a very chilling story, and I want to hear more of what happened next, but if you can just hold on there, I wanted to ask Tali to talk about where she was on this very sad day and talk about what happened to her, and then we'll resume the Halloween story. Tali, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Fortunately, I don't live in that area. I live a little further out, closer to the center of the country. So when the sirens went off at 6:30 in the morning, I was in Tel Aviv, and like everyone else, ran to the shelter. And I saw the list of all of the places that were on the announcements of the places that have been attacked. And what we tend to do is, because our team lives down south, whenever there is a barrage, we check into everyone. And we saw that the missiles were hitting Kfar Aza. You saw Kfar Aza is one of those kibbutzim right on the border. So immediately sent out a notice to Idit, who works with us. She manages our office, and asked her how she's doing. Usually she says, yeah, there's a rocket, we're okay, moving on. This time it was different. She said there was a crazy barrage and of rockets on our area, and we're locked in the room, and there are terrorists in the kibbutz. Because Kfar Aza is one of those kibbutzim that they immediately crossed into that kibbutz. But when the sirens went off, there was already terrorists on the ground in the kibbutz Kfar Aza. When their first responders team reached the weapons storage, the terrorists were waiting for them there already. So Idit immediately told us that something is happening and that the terrorists are in the kibbutz. And from then, like from 6:30 in the morning till 2:30 the next morning, We were texting every couple of hours and hoping to hear what was going on. And the announcements were moving from bad to worse to desperate. Her, because they have like a system within the kibbutz getting information. And Idit was locked in her safe room with her 22-year-old daughter, who just the night before was celebrating her 22nd birthday and was with her at home and not in the area of the young adults. And that's where the terrorists came in and basically killed most of her friends, slaughtered them one after the other. Idit was writing to us all along. And, you know, at one point there was supposedly a tank that entered, but the tank stopped and was shot at and couldn't continue, so they couldn't rescue them. And then at a certain point, she just, you know, wrote and said, I'm afraid I'm going to die. That, you know, because hearing the notices, she said, Ophir, the head of the regional council of Sha'ar HaNegeb, was killed, a very close friend of hers. And this one was killed. And they were getting the information, and basically she didn't see herself getting out alive. Around midnight, she wrote to us and said, the terrorists are here, they're on our roof, and we don't know what to do. Thank God they just used her house as an overlook place. So they were there, they walked up through the stairs from above, and they waited. They were shot down by the army that was in the kibbutz by then, but it took the army a lot of hours, many hours to enter. And by the time they entered, the terrorists managed to booby trap most of the homes. So it was difficult to even release them. And at around 2:30 in the morning, she and her daughter were released and were evacuated safely, leaving behind. The kibbutz has over 60 people who died and over 20 who are still captured in Gaza. So for us, it's hearing the stories, knowing that we're powerless, we're helpless. There's nothing we can do. Our friend is there, and listening to her desperate calls is heartbreaking.
Holly, thank you. Beth, do you want to ask a question next?
Yeah, Jeremy, can you talk about what happened after, where you all are? What are you doing? How are you staying connected? Do people want to go back to the kibbutz? What are they planning?
Okay, so it's still very early days. Just to finish off what happened to us at the end, we were, thank God and thanks to the heroism of our emergency squad, we're okay, and the houses on Alumim are intact. But our dear neighbors on Kfar Aza and Be'eri and Nir Oz, their kibbutzim are destroyed. My wife Debbie is a social worker in the Eshkol region just south of us. Last week she went to Eilat to visit the people from Nir Oz who are evacuated, where over 80 people are hostages in Gaza. She's now in the Dead Sea visiting Be'eri, where 130 members were killed. From our own kibbutz, one soldier, son of friends of ours, as soon as the alarms went off, he went to join his unit, and he was killed going down south to his unit. Another son in our daughter's age group was on Kfar Aza and was killed in Kfar Aza. What happened with us at about 1:30 in the morning, we'd started at 6:30 on Saturday morning. About 1:30 in the morning on Sunday morning, we got messages saying, pack your bags, we're going to be evacuated at 3. So we packed our bags. We didn't really understand what was going on in the rest of the country. The whole time when I was in that protected room, my assumption was that a small group of terrorists have managed to get over the fence. They've come to Alumim. The emergency squad is out there. In an hour or so, the army is going to come with all its might, get rid of the terrorists, and we'll be out. I didn't realize the scale of what was happening. So these 12 soldiers, these 12 in the emergency squad managed to hold on until the army officially took over at 3 PM on Saturday. Anyway, 1:30 in the morning, we got the message to evacuate. We're going to be evacuated. That took a long time. At 8:30 in the morning, anyone and any of the guests or anyone else who had a car were taken in a convoy towards Netivot and evacuated. The kibbutz was evacuated at about 2:30 on Sunday afternoon to 2 hotels in Netanya, and I'm speaking to you from the hotel there. We've been here since the 8th of October, and as far as I know, we're going to be here for the next 3 to 6 months. Our situation is good. If something happened and the army finished the war and it was safe to go back, we could go back the next day. Our houses are there and they're intact. Be'eri, Niroz, Kfar Aza, the houses are destroyed, and that's going to take years, 3 years, until they can return.
Dolly, I wanted to ask you, and before I do that, Beth, perhaps you can put back up that map that shows each of the settlements so you can see exactly what Jeremy's been talking about. If you see Jeremy's settlement is Alumim, there's the arrow showing it, but the one, and that, as Jeremy said, has at least survived intact, but the two that did not, one was Kfar Aza, which you can see is up north, and the other one that was destroyed was Be'eri, which is to the south. And Beth, the approximate area of the festival, where all those young people were, was in that area.
It was over here near Re'im.
Right. And when the references to the hospital Netivot were to the city that's in the central part of that picture, and that's also part of our partnership region. And then Beersheba was the ultimate hospital that was referenced. Tali, what is going to happen? What are the plans to deal with relocation and problems in the region? Maybe a brief overview of that, and then we can see if our next speaker has arrived or not. Go ahead.
So as Jeremy indicated, it's very difficult to anticipate what the final plan is going to be. The government immediately, when the actual fighting was taking place, the immediate response was whoever is on the fence, all of those communities you saw, Nachal Oz, Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Alumim, Saad, all of those communities that are considered the 0 to 4 kilometers were immediately one by one, whether it was one family at a time or the whole kibbutz as a convoy, were taken out of those communities, moved into a temporary location. In this case, it was Netivot, till they managed to gather the majority of the community, and then they were moved to a temporary location. Those were all of the communities 0 to 4. And those are the communities that are now being told that they are going to be located in some kind of a setting that they're at the moment for about till 3 months. We don't know if those 3 months means 3 months from October 7th or 3 months from the day the war ends, but it's around 3 months, and then they'll be moved to a temporary location that is now being identified for each one of those communities for the time till they will rebuild the communities, but also till they manage to create a safe zone, a safe area for all of these communities to move back. The communities that are 4 to 7 kilometers, remember when we talk about the Gaza envelope, the communities that are surrounding the Gaza Strip, we're talking about communities from the border up to 7 kilometers, but they were divided into 2 sections. So the immediate evacuation was 0 to 4. The evacuation of the communities from 4 to 7 kilometers, which are another 6 of the communities of Sdot Negev, was postponed and happened on October 15th. So in the meantime, all of those communities from the Gaza envelope communities, 0 to 7 kilometers, were evacuated to different locations in the country. So we have communities from Sdot Negev that are dispersed everywhere from Gome up north all the way to Moa, which is in the Arava, about 40 minutes from Eilat. And they're going to be there till there is some kind of a plan. They are offering these communities different options, such as temporary relocations as a community in this kind of a trailer park location somewhere, being absorbed by another kibbutz for the meantime, being housed in new homes. There's a few developments in the Kiryat Gat area that aren't populated yet, so perhaps to move a kibbutz there. These are the options that are offered for these kibbutzim, and they have to make decisions because these are our major decisions, specifically because a regional council, like, for example, Sdot Negev, has 16 communities. If they want to continue operating as a regional council, they have to have these 16 communities in one area. They can't have one part of the community in Jerusalem like it's today and another part down south. You can't really manage a community like that. So that is one of the main challenges. And also the challenge is, what is going to be, you're now uprooting your life into one location. You're going to be spending there 3 months. In 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, you're going to be uprooted again and asked to put to be placed in a temporary location for a year and a half. And then after 2 years that you're away from your home, you're going to be expected to uproot again and move back. It's a very difficult decision. It's a very difficult situation, and this is what we're doing at the moment, trying to build the strength of the communities itself, creating their new leadership. In certain cases, it's a new leadership because the previous leadership was killed or was hurt or is not able to deal with the situation. In certain cases, there is leadership, but really to try to facilitate these needs with these communities and come up with the best solution. The city of Netivot is in a different place. It was impacted by the situation. There's many rockets aimed at the city. It's now the second largest city in the Western Negev after Rahat. And because they are 7.5 kilometers from the border, they're not considered the Gaza envelope communities. Therefore, they do not get any kind of stipends or benefits from the government at the moment. So that community is staying in place. And the question is, how do you sustain life for these people who are still living in that area? Many of them are young families with women that the husbands are on reserve. So, they're at home with 2, 3, 5 little kids, are a little afraid to go to the supermarket. So how do you provide for them all of their needs in the meantime? And what is the long-term strategy? How do you send kids to schools? How do you send kids to kindergartens? Even if the kindergarten has a secured room, how do you ensure that the kid is safe on the way from home to the kindergarten? So these are the main issues that they're dealing with at the moment. What we see is a huge increase in need for basic supplies. They're afraid to go to the supermarket. So you have to bring the food to them. There's a large group of elderly who can't manage going in and out of the bomb shelter because they don't have a safe room in their homes. Their homes were built before 1991. So they basically moved themselves down to the bomb shelters, public bomb shelters. You have to provide supplies for them. And all of these dilemmas that we're basically helping them with. In order to see that they can manage through this period. They're actually, a really well-organized community compared to other communities that in that area. They were able to protect themselves. They have a very, very well-trained, like, local police. Their first responders team. They managed to save the community with a group of Army patrol unit that was based there, and drive away the terrorist group that was trying to enter the city, but they have rockets. There was one family that was killed. The father, a 14-year-old, his father and his grandfather were killed from a direct hit. So there is a lot of need to help them sustain this period of time that we don't know. Will it last another week, another 3 weeks, another 2 months? That's the main question.
Holly, I know that our community will, as it has in the past, partner to support. And before Beth introduced our last speaker, I just wanted to recognize that some of the participants today are part of the Federation Steering Committee, which helps guide the funding and support of this region, has visited the region many times. I see the Dishlers on the screen, extremely generous leaders of our community. And perhaps after this, if folks are interested in connecting with this community, you can reach out to Beth, who can help make that happen. But first, we have one more speaker that Beth's going to introduce.
Yes, I'm really honored he was able to join us tonight. It is Lieutenant Colonel in the reserves, Yaniv Karen. Yaniv, have you turned your camera on and say something so your picture will pop up on everyone's screen on their if they're looking at the gallery view. Yaniv is serving currently in the Lebanon front as a war room commander. He holds a BA in computer science and an MBA. He works as a manager for Intel, and he's happily married to our colleague Hila Yogev Karen, who's our partnership manager and the assistant director of Israel and Global Strategies at Federation. So Yaniv, are you on? Hila tells me you are here.
Give
I
him a
thought-
second. Yes, yes.
Okay, here's Hila. Hi, thanks.
And this is me. You see me? You
Ah,
hear me?
perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes, if you can give us a brief, what you're seeing from where you are, I guess, or whatever you're allowed to tell us.
I'll do my best. Okay. So yeah, I'll try to elaborate a little bit more about what's going on here in the military aspect. And you already gave a really, really comprehensive introduction. So there's nothing needs to be added, I guess. So I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Northern Front, Lebanon Front, actually. And I'm actually here as we speak. I'm using my cell phone as a hotspot to be connected to you. There's no Wi-Fi in the military bases. So just a little bit of what's going on the militant aspect, okay? So you know how it's all started. Jeremy told you the atrocity that the Hamas did, and it started with a bang, the war, and this is a war. And currently we are handling with multiple fronts. It started with the South Front with Hamas, and we have in the North Front, we have Hezbollah, and we have Syria, where the North Front is very active. We have several attacks and attempt to attack by Hezbollah, mostly by anti-tank missiles, drones, ground-to-ground missiles, rockets, all sorts. They had some success at the first week or so, and by then the army started to be more operational and better dealt with. Sorry. And currently we are it's mostly in zero casualties in the north. I hope we'll stay this way. We had some in the beginning, but right now we're pretty good and pretty safe. So we have that in the north. We have the Hamas in the south. We have in the center of the land, we have the Jenin and the Palestinians and all kind of jihad organization that also try to do riots and terror attacks. And we have that dealt with. We also have internal terror attempts, but that was also dealt with pretty well, and we didn't see that grow. We have attacks from Yemen by some kind of an org called the Houthis, which send missiles and drones and unmanned aircraft to strike, especially in Eilat. We had those dealt with. And the goal of all these attacks and all these fronts is actually to split the abilities and weaponry and headcount of the army to several fronts and not allow to be concentrated in just one front. However, I can tell you that right now we're spread pretty strong at the north. We're very good on and set for defense, so we don't expect any surprise strikes that happened like in the south happening over here. This is what we are here to stop and prevent. The south is filled with military, infantry, armed, whatever. And currently there is a ground raid going. So we've started, and you can see it on communication, but we started from the north of the Gaza Strip and pretty much on the middle. And there's a pretty significant forces going there and bit by bit kind of dismantling the Hamas defenses. Unfortunately, we have casualties there. Today we've lost, I think the TV already said about 12. They don't know everything, and I guess they
I
will
think we're
publish.
up to 15 already.
Okay,
That's
so
what they said.
that's what I said. They don't know everything. We knew from the start it was 15, but we're not allowed to talk about it. It was very unfortunate. It's been investigated to see what happened, but we have been prepared for that kind of attacks, and we have been able to stand and withstand and prevent casualties in similar attacks. So this is what we're working on. The goal at the end of it is to destroy Hamas militant abilities and governance abilities in the Gaza Strip. That's the goal, and I don't think we have any other option given what they've done to us so far. Over here in the north, we're waiting prepared. If Hezbollah will decide to strike, it would be much bigger and harder offense than the Hamas. They're well organized. And I gotta say that all these fronts, Yemen, internal, the Houthis, Syria, Hezbollah, Lebanon, Hamas, it's all orchestrated by Iran, which we're pretty aware of that, and it's also have been told in the all kind of communication channels. So that's what's going on pretty much as far as the military here in Israel. We are at war state. We have a lot of people that have been drafted to war. I've been here for the last month or so, and it's not going to end soon. But I can tell you that all the forces over here are very, very motivated, well-trained, and ready for action. And we're prepared to change the tides and strike back and strike hard.
Wow.
That's it. And if you have any questions,
Thank you,
feel free to-
Yaniv. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone on the call does as well. Len, do you want to facilitate the questions and answers?
Yep, thanks, Beth and Yaniv. Thank you, and we're behind you. We have some time for questions, and what we're going to do is ask someone first to go from the room and out of Israel. So look around and see who has a question there, and then we'll do a question from here. And then if you would indicate to Beth, perhaps on chat, if you have a question, she'll call on you if you're on Zoom. If you can keep your questions short, and if our guests can keep their answers short, we can fit as many as we can for maybe 10 minutes or so, and then we'll conclude. But Rachel up at Adath Israel, would you unmute? And if anyone has a question up there, fire away.
We don't have any questions here. Thank you.
Okay, how about in our in our room? Yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
So can you give us a little idea of whether schools in the region, in different regions have reopened? What is going on in terms of, commerce, stores? I know things were shut down early on, but what is going on right now relative to those different different activities in different parts of the country, if you know? And I direct this to whoever can best answer.
I'll address it, just, in general, and then I'm sure that Yaniv can come and say, from the Army's perspective, and Jeremy can talk about his personal experience. But basically, it depends where you live. Every area, basically, we went back to COVID days. The country is divided into different colors. There's red, there's green, there's orange. Basically, areas that are green are further out of the range of the missiles. We're talking about more or less the center of the country and the Jerusalem area that are now allowed to return to some kind of a normal life. But even in that sense, it's not fully operational yet. In most places, the shops close at around between 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening, no matter where. In those areas that life is supposedly back to normal. So even in Tel Aviv, malls will close at around 5 or 6, and in other places as well. Even in those areas where they're allowed to go back to school, it depends if the school has a large enough safe room or bomb shelter. So in certain places, kids are still going back only by Zoom, or they go in different shifts because they want to have the right quantity of kids that are able to go to into bomb shelters. So that depends basically on the places that you live. In Netivot, for example, they did not return back to school. Remember, Sderot and all of that area were completely evacuated. So the front line now with the Gaza border is the city of Netivot. They did not go back yet to school. They're trying to use the Zoom systems, but it's not fully operational in all of those places either, because not all of the homes have the ability to access all of the needs. And also remember, we're having the kids on one hand, but the teachers aren't always in the same place. So if you have teachers from Netivot that live in the Gaza envelope communities, they are not able really to attend to meetings with the staff, etc., and to fully operate in those systems. So I would say, even though in certain areas it's supposedly back to normal, nothing is yet back to normal. In the different locations that we have evacuees, there is an attempt to start also creating some kind of a normalcy. So Alumim, I was today in Kibbutz Saad, and yesterday with Saad in the Dead Sea. Today we were with Kfar Aza in Shfaim. They are starting now to regulate their systems. So in most of those places, already from the second week, they started operating a certain kind of program for kids 0 to grade 6 with their local strengths, with the teachers and people that are volunteering in those locations. We have a lot of NGOs who are also operating in these areas. For example, Dror Israel, the adult program of the Habonim Dror youth movement, are now spread out in 40 or 50 different locations, providing assistance and an educational framework. 3 of the larger organizations, Chotam, Branko Weiss, and Dror Israel, opened a pop-up school in the Dead Sea area where there are several different kibbutzim that are housed there. The same is happening now in Eilat. So we see the NGO system, the educational NGOs, really spread out throughout the different locations, helping the local communities with their strength to recreate some sense of an educational system in order to enable the kids to have some kind of a routine and, to stabilize them. After the first week, everyone realized that the kids have to have some kind of a routine, some kind of a schedule. They know that they have to get up, etc., etc. It also relieves the parents, first of all, from the stress. It allows them to deal with the bureaucracy, and in certain cases to return to work. In a lot of these locations, a lot of the communities open a WeWork kind of a setting to allow people that are able to work from distance to do that. So there's a lot of new attempts, but remember, certain people can't. They need to go back to their factory. They need to work in the field. Now there's a huge movement of volunteers coming to assist these farmers that aren't in their location to really harvest their farms, etc.
Oh, wait, let me just
talk about
interrupt
your
and to see if Jeremy wants to add anything very
yeah.
quickly to
Talk
that
about
answer.
your dairy farm, Jeremy.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple of things first about the school kids. As Tali said, the kibbutz is split between 2 hotels. So one of the most important things was to get the educational frameworks up and working, even though it's not a full day, it's some of the day. But we've managed to do that. There's a bus which comes from the Netanya local, the town authority. The bus that comes at 9 in the morning takes the kids to the other hotel where there are frameworks and brings them back afterwards. And we're trying to get some sort of stability and normality into our lives. As far as the cowsheds on Alumim are concerned, when the terrorists came in, they burnt down the haystacks, the cattle feed. They set fire to the cowsheds, offices, they shot into the milk tanks, the computers were down. And so for about 4 days, the cows were without food. We couldn't get food in, no one was there, no one was allowed to be there, it was a war zone, no truck drivers were willing to bring food in. But we've got organized that now there are trucks that come in and they distribute the food directly to the cows. There's a group of 6 people from the kibbutz who are on the kibbutz. We rotate there with the army. So there are volunteers who come for a few days to milk the cows. I spoke to the guy in charge of the business side of the kibbutz. He put out an appeal asking volunteers to come and help milk the cows. He got thousands of responses, hundreds of people who said they can milk the cows and hundreds of people who said, I can massage the hands of the people who are going to milk the cows. We have been completely overwhelmed with offers of help for every aspect. On the first day we arrived, there were psychologists, there were stand-up artists, there were people who did kids' parties, that people who came in from volunteer groups who just said, what can we do? How can we help? And that's something certainly, I'm sure everyone in Israel feels the huge unity around this campaign.
And we want you to feel that as well. We had over 102 screens for this call and more people in the rooms, by far the largest ever for an Addith Israel Lunch and Learn. Beth, are you still there? Maybe you can read
Yes,
one of the
there-
questions from the chat. Go ahead.
I am. My internet went, my Zoom went out for a minute. So, but we have like quite a number of questions and comments. So I just want to say all your questions about anti-Semitism, Penn campus, other campuses, I'll be sure to bring that message to my colleagues at the JCRC and see if perhaps it seems like there may be a need for some kind of forum or to send materials. I know we do have materials. If you go to Philly Stands with Israel, the resources, I do believe there's information on that website. Or if you go to jewishphilly.org, you'll see the Philly Stands with Israel right at the top. You can click on it. There should be some resources about how to answer people who are talking about Israel and the IDF and civilian casualties and anti-Semitism. But I do, the first question we actually got was, what do we know about the hostages, Yaniv? I think that question's really going to be more for you. And I don't know that you can say if you know all the whereabouts, but that was the question. Does the Army feel like they know where they are?
Well, I can't really say everything I know about it. The hostages are a very big issue for the entire Israeli people and the army. I know there's a lot of efforts being done to rescue them. And we do consider that on the moves we're making, but not to the length it would stop any kind of a battle or war effort.
And
That's
to the
much we can say.
and to the comment that someone asked, or they wanted to ask, how can we defend against statements the IDF is not taking care to protect innocent Palestinian civilians? I don't know if you have an answer for that question, but
Yeah, well, IDF is the only military in the world that tells you before he's going to bomb you. The only army in the world.
Mm.
We've sent flyers. We've called people. We've done everything we can to get the people, the innocent, and I'm saying quotes, and I'll tell you why shortly. People away from harm. Unfortunately, Hamas is preventing them from kind of leaving their house and going away from harm because it doesn't serve their purpose. They use them as the human shield. That's their purpose. The more dead people, as far as they're concerned, they're shaheeds. They died for the cause. That's the perspective of Hamas. So while Israel is trying so much and so hard to get people away from harm, Hamas is doing the exact other way. And when we bomb, we try to do it very accurately and make sure that there's no people around there. But at the end of it, if you fire from a house full of civilians, we cannot just stand there and say, hey, okay, shoot at me. We gotta stop the firing. So when we fire and there's civilians over there, they get hurt. This is a war, and even innocent people get hurt at war. But the extent the army, the IDF is doing, there's nothing like that in the world. We've been roughly judged and unfairly judged.
thank you.
Can I just add something? I don't consider the Palestinian people to be my enemies. The people on the other side of the border, I'm sure they have the same aspirations as I do, to live peacefully, to grow, to allow their families to grow up in a stable environment, to put bread on their table. Hamas are not the champions of the Palestinians. Hamas use the Palestinian population as human shields. At this music festival, they showed a video last night. I think it was filmed by Hamas themselves. When they were massacring the people at this party, they found a Palestinian bus driver. The Palestinian, they spoke to him in Arabic. They said, what are you doing here? He said he was a bus driver. He brought people to the festival. He lives in East Jerusalem. They asked him where the army was, and he didn't know, and they shot him. The Hamas, they are Islamist extremists. They're not interested in the Palestinian cause. And it's important that people should make a distinction. The Hamas are the enemies of Israel and the Palestinians.
No, that's important. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Beth, I think what we're going to do now is just give everyone a 1-minute last word, because we're
Over time.
we generally try to conclude on time. So Yaniv, 1-minute last word, go for it.
I can just elaborate some more. Somebody asked me how long will the war last. The answer is I don't know. It's not going to be short. It's not going to be a couple of weeks or so. It's going to be longer. How long? I don't know. Israel has a will to end it fast, but it's not all depends on us. And the other thing I want to say, just elaborate on what Jeremy is saying. The Quran has 5 interpretations, different interpretations. One of them is very extremist and very Jew hate, and the Jews are pigs and they all need to die. And this is what Hamas believes in. And as Jeremy mentioned, they have killed a lot of Palestinians, and they've been very brutal and ruthless to their own people as well. So yeah, they're not the Palestinian champions. Other than that, I wish you all the best. I also have to drop, and thank you all.
Thank you. We deeply appreciate it. Stay safe and proud of what you're doing and grateful for what you're doing. Tali, 1 minute. Go ahead.
I'm just going to echo what Rabbi Yanov started with. It's a very, very dark time now in Israel, but we will prevail. What we see, the outpour of support and volunteerism, Up to the 7th of October, we thought there was we lost our sense of solidarity. And unfortunately, it took this tragedy, but what is happening and how strong people are and how supportive and the strength that everyone gets from one another is really incredible. And I think that's going to be the light that will lead us forward.
Tally. Jeremy, 1 minute.
Yeah. Okay. If I think what I could do if I was in Philadelphia, I think it's very important to continue to campaign for the release of the hostages. They took hostages from babies less than a year old to elderly people in their 80s. We must get the hostages released. A lot of people have suffered the most terrible experiences. They've lost families. They've got people in captivity in Gaza. My own personal experience, a lot of people have said to me, what can we do for you? You know, I feel they want to cheer me up. They want to bring me food. They want to bring me all these different things. And what I say to them is, thank God I'm alive. My wife's alive. My children are alive. My granddaughters are alive. And that's the most beautiful gift. And nothing can top that. At which point they usually break down into tears. But we really feel the unity of the entire population of Israel and the entire Jewish people around the world. We're all together, and that's maybe a spark of light for all of us.
Beautifully said. Beth, last minute from you, and then we'll conclude.
So many people are writing their thanks to all the speakers. I don't know if everyone's been looking at the chat and how much they appreciate you all taking the time to speak to us today, praying for the safe return of the hostages and the safety of the soldiers, and Am Yisrael Chai.
Well, I'm going to conclude and thank everyone for sticking with us. To Beth, thank you for helping to organize this and partnering with us. I think many people learned about the partnership with the region that didn't know about it before. So thank you for that. Jeremy, your inspirational remarks, your moving description of what happened is something that will stick with us. And Tali, your hard work every day in the region, doing nothing but help people, struck me when I first met you decades ago and strikes me yet again today. So, so thank you. We will continue as part of our Adath Israel Lunch and Learn the first Wednesday of each month to stick with these communications, and they're open to the community, not just our synagogue. So for all that want to be a part of it, make sure that we have you on our email list. Just email me, leonard.bernstein@hklaw.com. And finally, a final prayer in my last minute as a temporary rabbi. May our cousins in Israel soon have the peace that they deserve. And may we all have the strength to continue to support them in every way we can. And at least here we'll say amen.
Amen.
And God bless you for being with us today. Thank you and have a good afternoon.